Good morning. It is the morning of Friday, August 2nd. I've just finished breakfast. I've got my latte. I'm ready to begin today's preserving project. Update on yesterday's fermented salsa. The leftover salsa, I put it into a bowl, sat down at my desk with a spoon and ate it. Just ate it as it was, and it was so good. It was so good. I didn't eat it on eggs. I know some of you had some really great suggestions. I do like salsa on eggs as well, but I just ate a bowl of salsa and it was so good. When I came down this morning, I noticed some kind of liquid around on the counter, and so sometimes this happens. I don't know, there's actually liquid in the bottom of this plate, but these are fermenting so much that they're actually kind of leaking out. Do you see all that? This one's got water all on the top, as does this one. So there's water all in here. So there was water all over the counter. And so when I woke up and came down, my husband had left before I had gotten up. I was like, oh, come on, did he make a mess? Shame on me, that was not fair. No, my fermented salsa had been kind of bubbling over. So I cleaned it up and put it on a plate. So I say that as a caution, right? Sometimes with fermented items, they're just really active ferments, and that's a good thing. It is not a bad thing. You just may have to kind of clean it up a little bit, maybe put some clean water in the airlock from time to time, and let it continue to do its job. So now on to today's project. I've got a couple of things I want to accomplish today, some of them for today, and some of them in preparation for tomorrow. The easy one is in our backyard, we've got some blueberry shrubs. I actually went and harvested some blueberries this morning while the kids were getting ready from school. And they're gonna go right into a Ziploc bag in the freezer, and they'll be utilized at a later date. I also pulled out my Excalibur dehydrator trays. I've got 3 trays, and I've got these new liners now that I want to show you. So these are silicone liners. The brand is called Bright Kitchen. And so I'm actually so excited about having these. I've only been using them for a few weeks now, but I've got 3 that have this kind of lip. So if you have things that roll around, they're not spilling all over the place. And then I have 6 that are just the standard, here it is, the standard silicone mat, just like this. So I got rid of the Teflon sheets that I had with my Excalibur, because I've had my Excalibur now for, oh man, probably close to 15, 16, maybe 17 years. It's been a while. And so this Teflon sheets that came with it, they were used every penny that I had paid, and it was about time I just get something new. And so a really good friend of mine had suggested these. She uses these and I love them. So I'm gonna link them down below for you, because maybe you just need something new. But today I'm going to use the ones with this lip, and we are going to dehydrate some elderberries. So I've got 3 reusable grocery bags here. We have a couple of elderberry shrubs at our homestead property, and the elderberries are just now starting to turn and ready to be harvested. And so what I do, and I'm gonna do this later today when I go back to the property, is I take a bundle, throw it in a bag, and throw the bag immediately in the freezer. Now, I'm gonna work quick because I've already taken these out of the freezer, but I'm gonna be putting my hand in and kind of like getting the berries off of the bunch, off of the stems. Inevitably, I will have some stems and I can pick out what I can, but I'm not gonna worry about perfection. And then we're gonna get our berries onto the trays and into the dehydrator, and it's probably gonna go a good majority of the day today. I like to dehydrate my elderberries and not freeze dry. So with freeze drying, you have to actually pull all the moisture out. And when you have a really tight, compact berry, it's even the same with blueberries in my opinion, you kind of have to pierce the berry so that actually the moisture can come out. Whereas with dehydrating, it's a lot easier, a lot simpler. I couldn't tell you the mechanics of how that's working, but it just works better. And so when it comes to elderberries, dehydration, in my opinion, is best. So I'm gonna start with 1 bag at a time. And like I said, try to work fast. Now, I can also just kind of shake. You might be able to see. There's some berries already at the bottom. So first I'll just get as many off of as I can. I prefer to do this in this manner because I find they come off of the stem, did I already say this? So much easier when they're frozen versus fresh. And then I'll just kind of put my hand in and start kind of manipulating them off of the stem a bit. But to me, that is the easiest way to do this. Fresh, it just makes a big mess because they're not frozen. You could get elderberry juice and stain everywhere. Will I get every berry? No. So I try again to not strive for perfection. Okay. There's still some berries there, but I'm happy with that. So I'm gonna set that aside and I'm going to dump the bag onto my silicone sheet. And again, this is why having the lip around it is so helpful. I'm gonna pull out any obvious big stems here. Usually when you see stems, it's because there's still berries attached. The weight of the berries took the stem off with it. So when you are using elderberries to make your own elderberry syrup, which is what we'll be doing, I also use our own homegrown elderberries in our immunity tincture that I sell on our Apothecary shop. It's made with elderberries, echinacea, and a bunch of other really great immune boosting medicinal herbs. But whenever you're working with elderberry, you want to make sure you're working with the dried berry and not the fresh. All right, we've got 1 tray down. So I turned that to 135 degrees and I put it for 12-ish, 14 hours. I usually just put the time on as long as it can go, and I'll come back and check it when I can, because you can't over dry the elderberries. So let it dry at 135, 150 degrees until everything is perfectly dried out, and then we'll come back. Okay, I am back from the garden and I had every intention on actually filming what I was harvesting for the garden so you can see it and as we preserve it for the challenge. But guys, it was, or it is, like 178 degrees outside. I am so hot. I feel a little bit better now, but I thought I was gonna have like heat stroke. I am so sweaty and nasty. Yeah, so that's attractive. But I need to get some of this processed before I can shower and decompress. So I want to show you what I got, but we're gonna go through what I can for today, and the rest of it we'll process it for the next couple of days. But this is all peppers that I was able to get. Some of them certainly have some damage, but still very usable. Hot peppers mostly. This is lemon basil, I think. We're gonna do a couple of fun things with that. This is eggplant. And then these are Sugar Rush peach. Is that what it's called? Sugar Rush peach peppers. I think they're a hot pepper that have a little bit of sweetness. They are supposed to turn, I think, an orange color, but a couple of them were starting to get, I think, blossom rot. So I harvested a few just to see if they would turn color here on the counter. But I learned about these from Holler Homestead. I think they've grown the Sugar Rush peach. I keep calling them Sugar Rush peach. I think it's just Sugar Rush peppers for the last couple of years, and they love them for their hot sauce, and so I wanted to try them this year. And then this bin is all oregano. We are going to handle that very shortly. And this is all tomatoes. There are some red ones on the bottom. Oh, and there's some tomatillos that I've got to get out as well. I'll have to go through this at some point. But a lot of rain is gonna start coming over the next probably week or so. And so in order to avoid a lot of the splitting and the rotting that we're currently trying to manage, I went and picked a lot of our really nice looking tomatoes, or anything that had just a hint of color. I mean, look at that one. That one's gorgeous. Just so I could have them ripen on the counter and they would be good for multiple uses. I also have a bucket of all kind of cherry, more of those Black Beauty, a couple more green ones. There's some red cherries in the bottom there. And then I've got 4 bags. This is what we're gonna try to tackle mostly right now. This is what I do when I'm harvesting, just because it's so easy, is I put things in bags. But I've got 1 bag of lime balm, 1 bag of lemon balm, 1 bag of holy basil, and 1 bag of mint. And so we're going to get all of those herbs and the oregano and the lemon basil all washed. And we're gonna start the freeze dryer for a majority of those herbs. So that can be tomorrow's preservation project. And we're gonna check on our elderberries that are still going. They've been going for about 6 or 7 hours now, but we're gonna get the herbs washed and in the freeze dryer. All right, I've got most of the oregano on the tray. I'm gonna get the freeze dryer started and then start working on the next batch of herbs.
Mommy, have you decided yet?
Yeah, I don't have time, love. All right, so I was just checking on the elderberries and they are not yet done. There's still pretty much a lot of moisture in here. So I'm gonna put this back and it's gonna run all night. So we will check on this tomorrow. So it is Sunday, August 4th. And so just kind of recapping on what I did. On the 2nd, I went ahead and dehydrated those elderberries. I actually let them go in the dehydrator all night, and then the next morning got them into a mason jar with the rest of my elderberries, and so now they're ready to be used when I need them, and they're good for long-term storage. Yesterday, on the 3rd, I took out the freeze-dried herbs, right? So we freeze-dried as much as we could. I still have those other batches in the freezer. I have not yet run the machine with those. But we got the lemon balm and the tulsi and the oregano out. I put the oregano just in my spice cabinet. It's right here. You can actually kind of see the difference. This is dehydrated oregano. And then this is the freeze-dried. I mean, it's quite a difference when you look at it, isn't it? So the oregano is here. The tulsi and the lemon balm, I went ahead and actually put them in some Mylar bags and then sealed them, heat sealed them, because I have a decent amount of tulsi and lemon balm already in jars in my apothecary, ready to be used. And so what we freeze-dried yesterday, the days are going away from me. That'll be for long-term storage, long-term use later on. And so then last night around, I don't know, 7 o'clock or so at night, I was like, all right, what do I want to do for tomorrow, for the fourth day of the challenge? And I was just kind of like looking at the counter. I mean, I still have so much produce there to be dealt with, but I took out all of the really ripe tomatoes, and it didn't matter if it was a slicing tomato like a Cherokee Purple or a cherry tomato or a paste tomato. I just took all of my ripe tomatoes and I decided, you know what? I'm gonna make ketchup. And so that is the process I started last night, and we're gonna finish that today because I really wanted that to cook down as much as possible and get as thick as possible. Now, I have never made ketchup before. This is a first for me, and let me tell you, I am really excited of how this is turning out so far. And so I am using Becky from the Seasonal Homestead, her recipe. She has gone through and kind of vetted it and made it work for her and her family. And that's what I decided to do. I did cut the recipe in half. Her recipe calls for 24 pounds of tomatoes. I didn't have that many. I halved it down to 12. I actually had to pull out some frozen tomatoes to kind of make up that delta and making sure I had enough tomatoes. Now, because I didn't use all paste and because I used some frozen tomatoes, I had a lot of extra water content. So when I poured everything through my mill, right, I roasted it for about an hour, poured it through my food mill. You cannot discard that water. You really should not. Because I'm steam canning my ketchup, I really need to rely on having as much of that acidity, that natural acidity as possible within the ketchup. I am adding vinegar, right? But still, whenever you're roasting tomatoes, it's so tempting to dump that water. And this might be rebellish for me to say, but if I was pressure canning, I think that's okay. When I pressure can my tomato sauce, which is what I do, I actually do sometimes dump that water out. I know I shouldn't. I know there are people that are on both sides of the camp, so this is not a debate for that right now. But because I know I'm steam canning or water bath canning, I kept it all in, which means I needed to really reduce that down. So then I sauteed some onions, added my spices, added the vinegar back in, I added 1 cup of sugar, and now we've got our ketchup. So you can kind of see the line. I mean, it's reduced by half, if not even more than half. It really has reduced down. The trick for me to get my sauce, ketchup, whatever it is I'm doing down, is to actually boil it, bring it to a boil, and then bring it to a simmer. Like mine is on, I think, a 2 or a 3 on my stove right now. I keep it on a simmer for as long as possible, occasionally come by and stir it, and then I leave it overnight. I will take the lid off very carefully because a lot of the condensation is at the top of the lid, and then, you know, take that condensation in the lid to the sink. And then I'll do it again, kind of boil and then start simmering. Last night, however, I left the lid off. And I really think that made a huge difference. This has thickened up more than any other time I have made sauce with putting the lid on. So I think that might be the trick. So I got up this morning, brought it to a very low boil, and then put it on a simmer again. So it's been simmering on and off for about probably 4 hours. I'm really happy with the thickness, and we're gonna can this up. So you can kind of see how thick it is. I mean, it's not like commercial ketchup in a bottle thick, but it's thick enough, and I think it'll thicken up even more a little bit during the canning process. And it smells so good, and I actually did taste it, and this is gonna sound so silly, but it tastes like ketchup. One of the tricks that Becky did was in her vinegar. So she uses half cider vinegar, half white vinegar. Both have to be a 5% acidity. And then in that, she infuses that with celery seed, whole allspice berries, and whole cloves. she puts it in a little sachet and then puts that sachet in the vinegar. I just threw everything in the vinegar and then strained it out with a little fine mesh strainer. But that really did add so much vibrant flavor from the cloves and the allspice, especially, into the ketchup. Now, the last step in her recipe is she actually transports this to a blender and blends it really fine. You could also use an immersion blender, I think. And the reason is because we have onions in here. So I very finely diced one onion. Personally, I actually think my onion has kind of cooked down so well that I am not going to blend this. So the recipe calls for this to be done in 1/2 pint jars, which is this size. I ran out of 1/2 pint. I have 8 here, but I did find 2 1/4 pint, and then I think this is a 1/2 pint as well, just kind of the more decorative flat version. And it's a 1/2 inch headspace, and you're gonna process water bath or steam bath canning for 15 minutes. So just cleaning up my rims here, because you don't want anything like that little tomato skin to stay on the rim, because it could totally inhibit the seal during the canning process, which is a bad no-no. All right, let's lid these up.